Start
with the prayers. Om Sadashivarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunatu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvi Shanti Shanti. So welcome back. In the last class, we looked at what are the different types of pramana. That is, what are the different sources of knowledge, right? And then we also looked at what are the 12 darshanas, that is viewpoints, which exists in India today. Let me just mute you all. And we saw that all these viewpoints differ in their outlook of if they consider, what do they consider as a source of knowledge? So we saw that there were certain Nastika darshanas, which do not accept Vedas as pramanam at all. And then there are 6 Astika darshanas, which do accept Vedas as pramanam, as a source of knowledge. But even among them, only Advaita Vedanta accepts Vedas as the primary source of pramanam. The others accept it as secondary or tertiary source of pramanam. So 2 other words good for you to know along with pramanam is pramata and prameya. You will find that in Vedanta, often things appear in triads. So pramanam, of course, we already talked about already. It's the means of obtaining knowledge. And pramata is the knower. And prameya is the object, the knowable. So we are all here as pramatas, the knowers, wanting to know the scriptures or wanting to know the truth, which is prameya. And the means of obtaining this knowledge is the scriptures, which is the pramanam, right? So, and this pramanam will be revealed to you through the Guru-Sishya lineage. Now, we said that Vedas is, or the Shabda Pramanam is the primary source of knowledge. We will enter the text very shortly, but before that, let's look at what are the different texts which exists under Shabda Pramanam. So we'll talk about several layers. The first and the original source of the Vedas is called Shruti. Shruti is also just equivalent to Vedas. It means as was heard. So these were received by the Sapta Rishis, the initial 7 great Rishis, in direct transmission in meditation. Now, received in direct transmission from who? For now, let's call it the Lord or Ishvara. We will elaborate on what exactly we mean by Ishvara later in our classes. Now, Shrutis are said to be Apaurusheya, which means they're not a product of human intellect. There was no author for the Shruti. The Rishis were only the receptors, kind of like the antennas. And they received these 4 Vedas. You might have heard the names, the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda. The Vedas were not originally written. They were, for hundreds and thousands of years, they were orally transmitted. And which is why all of them can be chanted. Everything in the Vedas is called a mantra. And it is believed that at some point, when perhaps because of degradation of human intellect, people couldn't memorize the entire Vedas anymore. So they started writing them down, also to preserve it, because we were also getting attacked and things like that. And so, which is why, because they were all chanted originally, even today we say the best way to obtain this knowledge is through Shravanam, which is listening to a teacher who belongs to the Guru Sishya Parampara. And the Vedas, we talked about this briefly before, contain two portions. The first portion, which is the Karma Kandas, which is the ritualistic part and how to live a dharmic life. And they are to do with the first three Purusharthas, Artha, Kama, Dharma. And when one is done with those Purusharthas and becomes interested in the highest knowledge, which is about what is my true nature, and they become interested in moksha, then we come to Vedanta, Anta being the end portion of the Vedas. This is where we find the Upanishads, usually in the end portion, or it's also the end in the terms of being the highest knowledge. So there are hundreds of Upanishads, about 110 of them are still, 112 of them are still preserved today. And we consider 10 of them to be the primary or Mukhya Upanishads. So it's not because they're really superior in some way. All the Upanishads contain the same essential message of oneness. But we study these 10 particularly because Adi Shankaracharya, who was the revitalizer of Advaita Vedanta, he chose to comment on these 10, and it makes it hence easier for us to understand these Upanishads. So you don't need to remember these names, but just if you're interested to know, these 10 are Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aithriya, Chandokya, and Brihadaranyaka. Okay, so you don't need to remember that. There is a mantra which lists out all of them. And so that is essentially the first layer, which is the Shruti, which is as was heard. Now we will come to the second, the other layers. Technically, anything which is not a Shruti is called a Smriti. Okay, so a Smriti means as remembered. Now, this is a body of literature which was written by rishis, acharyas. The rishis received this knowledge, understood it, and then remembered them in this literature, which is why it's called Smriti, as remembered. So again, why do we say remembered and not written? Because again, it has to be emphasized that none of these rishis were coming up with something on their own. They were not coming up with something new. They also received this teaching, and then they're recalling the same teaching, which is the same thing which any acharya in the lineage would do. They would simply be recalling the teaching for you. We will not be passing on anything new coming out of our own intellect. Just, some examples we might use to make it more relevant for the current audience, but that's it. Now, why do we need a secondary literature? Why can't we just study the Vedas, the Upanishads as they are? This is because the Vedas contain many ideas which are a bit abstract in form, and most of our intellects are not developed enough or have not gained that subtlety to understand these abstract concepts. To convey this abstract idea into something more concrete and easily understandable, so great acharyas wrote secondary literature we call Smriti. The second reason is, while the Vedas cover everything, the ideas are often quite spread out, and you will find them across different places. And the secondary literatures aim to systematically arrange them together to make it more beginner friendly, I guess you could say. Even Bhagavad Gita is a smriti, which is authored by Maharishi Vedavyasa, right? Which should be the next text most of you are already studying with Nandagopalji or would be moving on to. Now, like I said, everything which is not a Shruti can be called a Smriti, but we also give further subdivisions. But you should understand that all these can also be just called Smriti. So typically the third layer we call Sutras. Sutras is a terse form where the teachings are codified and arranged. And of these today, the Vedantic student is primarily concerned with Brahma Sutrani. Okay, so the Brahma Sutranis give logical support to the teaching given in the Shruti, and it aims to satisfy our reasoning intellect and our logical thinking. Hence, like we keep saying, there is no need for blind faith when it comes to these scriptures. And this is, again, the big difference between mainstream religion today and spirituality in general, or Vedanta. So mainstream religion typically asks you for blind faith, and spirituality asks you to question, actually. Which is why a lot of more rational thinkers find themselves drawn to these teachings also. Now, you might come across many things which sound unbelievable at first. And if they do, you're encouraged to ask questions. Like we said, if you're accepting Vedas as pramanam, you cannot question, why does it say, I mean, it says, you can't question what it actually says, but you can ask questions to clarify your understanding of what it says. Sometimes we teachers will ask you to wait, but this is only because there is a systematic way to reveal this knowledge, and jumping ahead may cause some confusion. Some other times it is also because these scriptures are beautifully arranged in a sequence which are aimed to generate questions in your mind, and they themselves will answer these in the next verses. Now, coming back, so Brahma Sutra reinforces what the Shrutis and the Smritis say with logic. So we can call it, in Sanskrit, it's also known as Tarka or Nyaya, which means reasoning, more specifically. So together, these three are called the Prasthanatrayam. Prasthana means a way of knowing knowledge, and Trayam means the fundamental three. These are the original sources of self-knowledge: the Shruti Prasthanam, the Smriti Prasthanam, and the Nyaya Prasthanam. So for Shruti Prasthanam, which is the Vedas, we study primarily the 10 main Upanishads and also some other Upanishads. And in the Smriti Prasthanam, a Vedanta student today primarily studies the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Jnana Prasthanam, you study the Brahma Sutras, which will give you logical support and reasoning. So typically, in the initial stages of your study, you will do a few Prakarna Granthas, which is the next layer I will talk about. Like basically, these are texts like Tattva Bodha. You will do then you will also parallelly or next do Bhagavad Gita, because that is an easier form to understand. And after finishing the entire Bhagavad Gita or most of the Bhagavad Gita, then we move on to the Upanishads. And after completing at least the 10 main Upanishads and probably a few other secondary Upanishads also, we then move on to Brahma Sutras. That's how we typically study. So these three are the Prasthana Trayam. Now, another layer that we can talk about is Prakaranam or Prakarana Granthas. So this is basically authored by more recent acharyas or gurus in our parampara. Now, several works have been written by Adi Shankaracharya himself. Some have been written by his disciples, by Sureshwar Acharya, Vidyaran Swami. We have acharyas even today adding to these teachings. So, like I said, these teachings carry the same essential teaching, but the acharyas are trying to just put it in a way which is more relatable for the audience today, with more modern examples and such. So the original teaching never changes. The main advantage of studying a Prakarana Grantha is, like I said, it would be a bit easier to understand. And of course, a lot of the original texts were in Sanskrit, which would be quite hard for someone to understand if they have not spent several years studying it, to really read Shankara Bhashyam, which is in Sanskrit, you would need quite a few years of strong studying in Sanskrit to be able to understand it. So hence we refer to Prakaranams and commentaries on the Prakaranams from teachers of our lineage. So these are broadly the 4 layers of the self-knowledge when we can talk about. There is also different classifications, like we have itihasas, which talk about historical events. We have Puranas, which are more stories to convey particular values and such. But these are broadly the 4 layers, good to know. And so Tattva Bodha falls under this 4th layer. It is so we have some prakaranas which talk about the overview of Vedanta, all the main concepts of Vedanta, and Tattva Bodha is one such text. In the same category, we will also have Atma Bodha, which was also supposedly written by Adi Shankaracharya. We have Upadesha Saram, written by Ramana Maharishi. They give an overview of the entire concepts. And other texts talk about just one particular area and clarify that. So we have Sadhana Panchakam, which talks about the practices that an aspirant can do. Or we have Drigdrishya Viveka, which talks about what is the difference between the Jiva and the Paramatma, and the oneness. So we have different prakaranas focused on different things. And Tattva Bodha is simple but beautifully comprehensive. Like I said, it's not part of the Prasthana Trayam, but it's a Prakarana Grantha, and it will help you systematically acquire this self-knowledge. The author is systematically introducing the technical terms used in the scriptures. It is also acts as a glossary of the jargon we used in Vedanta. So don't get intimidated when I say glossary and jargon. It's like, I think I gave you the example of the cricket match before, so if you're trying to watch a cricket match and you don't know what a no ball means, or you don't know what LBW means, you're going to have quite a hard time following the match and even enjoying it. So that's so like this, every field, whatever field you study, be it science or arts or cooking, everything has a bit of their own jargon. So it's Tattva Bodha will also introduce you to that. And it's also because a lot of the terms we use, like say karma, Ishvara, we all have our own preconceived notions based on the exposure we had in life till now about what these terms mean. So we will clarify all that here so that we all come to the study with the same understanding. But the text Tattva Bodha itself will actually give you the entire teaching. And I don't know if we have some highly evolved aspirants here with even this one text is actually enough to give you jnanam and to give you moksha. Okay, so I think I have someone. Right. Okay. Any questions? So we are clear about what is the Prasthana Trayam. Can someone tell me what is the Prasthana Trayam?
3 scriptures, Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya.
Correct, yes. And what? Perfect. And what do we study in the Prasthana Trayam largely?
We study the end of Vedanta, basically.
Right. So we study, under Shruti, we study the Upanishads, Smriti, we study Bhagavad Gita, and
Brahma Sutra.
And then we study Brahma Sutras under the Nyaya. Perfect. So let's move on. And so yeah, we will actually enter the text now in our third class. And so all of you, I hope, downloaded the file. So if you can open it now. I used to show it on the screen before, but it causes a lot of disturbance to keep switching between the screens. Okay, so we'll start with the first page. Oh, okay, and I will chant and you can all repeat after me. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Hari Om.
Hari
Om.
And then if you can just scroll down to the bottom of the page where it says Mangala Charanam. Okay. Mangala Charanam.
Charanam.
Vasudevendra Yogendram.
Vasudevendram Yogindram
Nattva Jnana Pradam Gurum.
Nattva Jnanapradam Gurum
Mumukshunam hitarthaya.
Mumukshunam hitarthaya
Tattva bodho vidhiyate.
Tattva bodho vidhiyate.
Right. So from the next class, we will also, this is the opening prayer of the Tattva Bodha text. So from the next class, we will add this to our opening prayers. So you can try to learn this as well. So in every tradition, in our tradition, every book opens with a prayer. So why does the author give a prayer here? It's for the completion of this book. They used to write these books on palm leaves in those days. So praying that, some goat doesn't eat it before he finishes the book and manages to get it out to people. And also for the book to serve its purpose. As humans, we have a limited capacity, and there are many unseen and unforeseen powers at play, which is why we talked about how the 3 shantis, we also talk about, these shantis are for the adhyatmic, which is yourself, but also adibhotik and adidyaivik powers at play, right? So there are forces beyond our control. Hence, we start every activity with a prayer, which is why we start our class also with the prayers, the Sahana Bhavatu and the Sadashiva Samarambham. So in this prayer, the author says, Nattva, which means having saluted, Vasudevendra Yogendram. Vasudevendra means the foremost of yogins. Yogi, Indra. Indra in Sanskrit means great. So meaning a great yogi. So he's saluting Vasudevendra, the foremost of yogis, Gurum, who is his guru, Jnana Pradam, he's the guru of what? He's the guru who gave him Jnanam, who gave him knowledge, and then he's giving this text, Tattva Bodha, which is, like we talked about the meaning of Tattva Bodha, the knowledge of the truth for those who are desirous of liberation. In Sanskrit, this word is mumukshu. So he's saying mumukshu nam. So he's giving this for those desirous of liberation, hitarthaya, for the benefit of those mumukshus. He's writing this text. Abhidiyate is presented. So the author here looks upon his guru same as Ishvara. By offering his salutations to his guru, he's also offering it to Ishvara. The Vasudeva also happens to be the name, another name for Lord Krishna, actually. So indirectly, the salutations are going to Lord Krishna as well. This author is offering namaskara to his guru, Vasudevendra Indra Saraswati. Now, from this suffix, Indra Saraswati, this is basically a suffix given to all sannyasins belonging to the Kanchi Mat. So because of this, we can say for sure that this Acharya, this author of this text, belonged to the Kanchi Mat. So some people say this text was possibly written by Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya did spend a lot of time in the Kanchi Mat, possibly. It is said, and some say it was another Shankaracharya of the Mat. But the best guess, what we can kind of know for sure from this introduction is it was a Swami or Acharya belonging to the Kanchi Mat. So like we said, this exactly whose the author is not that important, but the author's, this prayer was clearly very successful because so many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have probably studied this text by now. And this is the text that all acharyas in our lineage usually choose to teach first. And now he said, in this prayer, he said yogi. Now, what does the word yogi mean? So yoga actually has many meanings. When you're studying Bhagavad Gita also, you will see yoga being used in the context of many things. You will see it being used in the context of bhakti yoga or jnana yoga or raja yoga, karma yoga, and so on. In this sense, yoga means self-knowledge. And yogi is one who has self-knowledge, a jnani. So by saying yogindra, here is Jnanendra. So I offer my salutations to a great jnani. to a great self-realized person, is what the author is saying. And the author gave us the reason for these salutations, because he was my Jnana Pradam Guru, which is he's my Guru who has given Jnanam. And Jnanam here means self-knowledge. It is the knowledge of the whole. It is unlike any knowledge any other knowledge you can receive in this world, because this is not a knowledge which can be improved upon or negated. The word Guru itself means remover of darkness. Ru means remover or dispeller, and Gu means darkness. And darkness is usually used to symbolize ignorance. So Guru is someone who removes this ignorance through the knowledge of light. We actually see this symbolism in many places in our culture, but we don't often might know the significance of it. This is why we are encouraged to light a lamp every day in the morning. It's means we are a student when they wake up and they light a lamp in the morning. It means they're dedicated to this, gaining this self-knowledge. This is actually also the deeper symbolism behind the festival of Diwali. We often say it's the victory of good over evil, and we celebrate it with lights, right? So, but the deeper symbolism is it's actually the evil we are referring to is the darkness within us, the ignorance within us. And the good we are referring to is the self-knowledge, which will remove this darkness. So that is actually the Vedantic interpretation of what Diwali is for. There is also this popular prayer you might have heard, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. And it means, lead me from the unreal to the real, lead me from darkness to light, lead me from death to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So all these three things can be used interchangeably. They mean the same thing. I want to move from what is unreal to the real. I want to understand what is real. I want to move from darkness to light. And this simultaneously means I will be moving from death to immortality, because having the knowledge of my true nature, that is moksha. That is what will end this cycle of birth and death, which we will come to in more detail later. Now, Jnana Pradam, he says, who is the giver of knowledge, who has blessed me with this knowledge. Now, we supplied that the author is talking about Atma Jnanam, self-knowledge. The author is also hinting at an important point here, that he did not get this knowledge by self-study or by some kind of Kundalini awakening or going into some Samadhi state or by reading translations in a book. This self-knowledge was given to him by his guru. I took the guidance of a guru, Sampradaya, and the Sampradaya. That's what the author is hinting at here. Abhidhiyate, teaching, imparting. And this we talked about already. And yeah. So that's basically what the prayer says. And we also talked about already what we said mumukshu means, those desirous of moksha. And we spent the previous classes in detail talking about what exactly is moksha? It's those 5 benefits that we talked about in the first class, being able to enjoy them in full measure. And when we talked about the 4 Purusharthas, we said that many of us, moksha might not be identified as a goal yet, and that is okay. But whatever else we are seeking, whether we are seeking artha, wealth, security, or we are seeking kama, pleasure, or dharma, doing our duty, we are ultimately seeking happiness, and in it we are seeking moksha. So everyone will eventually come to identify with this as a goal. Right? So this verse that we just did is called a Shanti Pata, and the rest of the text is in prose form. Now, Tattva Bodha, sometimes when we chant it, it can be a bit awkward because it wasn't actually set to a chanda. It wasn't set to any particular meter, but we're still chanting it. So, but there is no one right way to chant it. So we're mostly just trying to pronounce the Sanskrit words correctly, but it can actually be chanted any way you want. Yes. Any questions on this first verse? Okay. Great. Then we can probably do one more verse today. If you can go to the second page of your text. So Tattva Bodha actually doesn't really have any chapters, but in this particular printout we've given you, we've divided it just to explain the different sections separately. Okay, again, you can unmute yourselves and I will chant and you can repeat. Atha sadhana chatushtaya vicharaha.
अथ साधनचतुष्टयः
Sadhana chatushtaya sampannadhikarinam
Sampannadhikarinam
moksha sadhana bhutam
मोक्षसाधनभूतम्
tattva viveka prakaram
Tattva viveka prakaram
yakshamaha.
Vakshama.
So we're now entering the first section of Tattva Bodha. To give you just an overview, Tattva Bodha has 5 sections. The first that we're entering now is Sadhana Chatushtaya. It talks about the qualifications of a person seeking to do this study. So to do any kind of study, you need certain qualifications, right? So if you want to do engineering, you must have done science in your 11th and 12th, and you must have got a certain number of marks to be able to qualify and so on. So whatever we study, there is a certain amount of qualifications which are required, and we will talk about those qualifications shortly. The second section is Vyashti Vichara. Vyashti meaning microcosm. So it is the analysis of the microcosm or the individual that we call Jivatma, that is ourselves basically. So it's analysis of who this individual is the second section. And the third section is Samashti Vichara, analysis of the macrocosm or the universal. So the analysis of what is this world, what is Paramatma, what is Ishvara, that will all come under Samashti Vichara. The fourth section, kind of giving away the climax a bit, talks about the Aikya Vichara, which is the oneness of the Jivatma and the Paramatma, how the essence of both is actually the same. And the fifth is the benefits of gaining this knowledge, the Atma Jnana Phalam. And these 5 sections are typically the core of most Vedantic texts. So any Vedantic text which talks about the entirety of the teaching will have these same 5 sections. All Upanishads will have these 5 sections. So look at the beauty of this text, right? So it is so systematic. In one line, here the author crisply tells us all we need to know about the text. He tells us what is the subject matter of this text, what is the benefit of the text, for whom is this text written, who's the directed audience, the target group. Very important to know because I was in marketing, so we know that you can't sell something to someone who's not in your target group. Not that we're trying to sell here, but it's useless for someone who's not in the target group. For example, trying to sell shampoo to a bald person would be quite a useless endeavor, right? So what is being taught is said when he says Tattva Viveka Prakaranam. Tattva is the truth of oneself, the real nature of oneself, what we call in Vedanta as Atman or Brahman. Viveka is analysis, inquiry. And hence Tattva Viveka means self-analysis or self-inquiry. Prakarana being method. So putting it together, this verse is saying Tattva Viveka Prakara. We are going to talk about the method of self-analysis. And so we can safely assume that if we do an inquiry into the self, it will lead to knowledge of the self. So at the end of this study, you will get to know yourself. You will know who you are. Some of you might say that I already have a fairly good idea of who I am. And that's great. That might be true. But if this knowledge has not come from the scriptures, it is subject to the defect and limitations of our senses, of our intellect, because of what can be perceived. Like when we talked about the sources of pramanam, we said there is certain knowledge about yourself which is aprameya. It is not subject to perception. So even take the word consciousness, right? Everyone, all the scientists, all the psychological study still cannot really decide on what is the source of consciousness. What is the source of sentiency? Is it simply some function which some mechanical things which happen in your brain which produces consciousness? Now, when I'm using the word consciousness in the term of how it's used in more and modern science today, which is talking about the brain level consciousness. But when we say consciousness in Vedanta, it means a lot more, which we will get into very shortly. And he said, moksha, the benefit or purpose is moksha sadhana bhutam. Sadhana means a means of obtaining something. Bhutam in the form of. So this is the means of attaining moksha. This knowledge will give you moksha. This is the only knowledge which will truly set you free to help you enjoy those fivefold benefits in full measure. In the process of getting moksha, it will also increase the quality of your life, your happiness levels, your peace of mind, how we talked about measuring your own progress through FIR, for example. And that's the frequency of your disturbances, the intensity with which you feel it, and the recovery time. So you will see that your FIR keeps improving over time. And the target audience, the author talked about, is Adhikarinam, the eligible students, the prepared students. For those eligible prepared students, I am teaching this knowledge. And who is an adhikari? Who is a prepared student? The author says, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Sampanna is one who has virtues. And so basically, sadhana chatushtaya means fourfold discipline. So one who has these fourfold disciplines, virtues in a good measure. The simple translation of this entire prose is, I'm imparting self-knowledge for the qualified people. Vyakshamaha, I'm communicating or transferring the knowledge now. So that is the second verse. Any questions?
So you used the word aprameya
Yeah.
and of course prameya.
Mhm.
Prameya is the knowable and aprameya is like not knowable.
Not perceivable by the senses.
So is this a journey from aprameya to prameya? Can we say that?
It's, I mean, in a way, I mean, it is knowable through the script, not through your sense perceptions, but through the scriptures alone.
Okay, so are there any examples of aprameya, or it just what is not prameya is aprameya?
What is not? Yeah. So in a way, we say
in an absolute fashion, is there something aprameya
Which
still
is,
for
yeah.
the
So
Guru?
basically, while we say the scriptures will reveal this knowledge of Brahman, the absolute consciousness to you, at later stages, we will also actually say that Brahman is not knowable. Finally, like, in the sense that we are trying to talk about something which cannot really be described. So we use a lot of examples to give you a sense of what it is. But ultimately, it is the indescribable because it is infinite. It was never born. It never dies. And it is all pervading. So there is no words I can use to really tell you how big or small this Brahman is. In that sense, in a way, Brahman is always a bit aprameya. But it can be known.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Actually, today's class is a bit abstract, so I think we'll have to look at the recording and then
I see.
maybe ask you questions the next class.
Okay, maybe we can do a quick recap then. So the first, which part did you find a bit abstract? The first part you were clear about when we
I don't know. It's just very new concepts, I guess. So I'm still processing it.
Okay. So would you like me to go a bit slower, perhaps, and others are able?
No. I think if I go through the recording once, it should be fine. So if I have some doubts, I can come back to you in the next session.
Yes, sure. So I just have 10 minutes left. So maybe I'll give a quick recap of what we did today. Right. So we talked about the different layers of scriptures. I think that is sort of clear. So don't get bogged down by the names and such. You don't need to really remember all that. So we basically, yeah, I mean, some you need to remember. You need to know what is
So,
Shruti.
ma'am, is it
Yes.
possible that when you feel that a recap is required, you ask us something, because maybe we can also then start it.
Okay, yeah, that's a lovely idea. Why not? So would someone like to recap the different, I think someone actually already recapped the layers of scriptures we did. So can someone, the Prasthana Trayam is clear for everyone, I think.
Yes.
And can someone tell me what is the Prakarna Granthas and why we do them?
Prakarana Granthas are texts written by more recent acharyas in a simpler form, so that it's easier for us to understand the Shrutis and Smritis, which were kind of far more abstract. So
Perfect. Great, Indraji. And then we came to the actual text of Tattva Bodha itself. And would anyone remember what we said are the sections in Tattva Bodha? Even if you remember one or two, you can chime in.
Sadhan Chatushtaya, Vyashti Vichar, Samashti Vichar, Aikya Vichar, and Atmagyan Phalam.
Yeah.
So beautifully and so quickly.
Very good. So I don't know if everyone else got that. So Sadhana Chatushtaya was the first one. Would anyone else like to tell me what that is?
The fourfold qualification.
Correct. So now someone else.
Okay.
Vyashti Vichara, study of the microcosm. What is that? It's the study of the individual. Right. So also, like, see, this is just an introduction. Each of these words I'm saying now, we're going to spend hours and hours talking about it. So it might have also been a bit abstract because we are just introducing a lot of new terms right now, but every class won't really be like that. Right?
So microcosm is more about self-study, exploring self, knowing self. Is it?
Yeah, in not self, yeah, knowing about yourself, the individual, and you as yourself as the individual. And then the third was Samashti Vichara, study of the macrocosm. And what was that we said?
That is very simplified, as a samashti word itself is, I think, is knowing about the, I think, whole, where more about the world and the universe.
Right. We use it, we're using it here in the sense of knowing about what is this world? What is Ishvara?
Ishvara. Okay.
Right. And then the fourth was Aikya Vichara. All right. Anyone remembers what that was?
That's the oneness.
Perfect. Yes. That is the oneness between the individual and the
That they are not distinct.
Atma and
Same.
Paramatma are the
Yes.
same.
Yes, and we will talk about how exactly they are the same, because when you look at yourself, I'm not saying I, Spandana, am God, because there is a certain identification I'm doing when I say Spandana. So what exactly that means when we talk about this oneness, that's what that section will talk about. And the fifth was very simply the benefits. Yeah.
Atmagyan Phalam.
Yeah. And then we came to the first verse. Does anyone feel like giving, but I don't know if your PDF already has a translation. If you want to hide the translation and give me what is the meaning of the first verse? The Mangala Charanam.
Okay.
Guru who is giving jnana.
Now I salute.
So
To the person who wants moksha.
The importance of Guru.
yeah,
That we should
of Guru.
That we should learn, the learning should be from the Guru rather than self-learning.
Perfect.
I do my namaskara to the Guru who has removed the darkness of ignorance from my life.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay.
And then the second verse was just introducing the first section. What did it say? Sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikarinam moksha sadhana bhutam tattva viveka prakaranam vyakshamaha. So
I will.
Yeah, anyone wants to try can try.
This is the path of the moksha.
In a way, it basically, again, it was just another introductory line which said, Sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikarinam, those who are qualified
Offering
to
to,
study,
yeah.
having the fourfold qualifications in full measure, moksha sadhana bhutam, to enable them to get moksha, tattva viveka prakaranam. So I am presenting an analysis of tattva, the truth, vyakshamaha. Now I will present. That was pretty much it.
So can we then say that if we are attending this class and we're going to learn, then we have some qualification?
Yeah,
Something.
I can definitely say that. So we will talk about qualification in a lot of detail. But really, you can definitely say you have some qualifications because this is not something which would interest, this topic is not something which would interest most people. You know, Swami Chinmayananda, he was, earlier this used to be a bit more secretive, you know, so you had to go to a Gurukul and commit for many years, do a lot of seva for the teacher before they would prove yourself, before they would start imparting this knowledge to you. And then Swami Chinmayananda was one of the first who started, he started a mission, right? So he started giving this knowledge out to everyone. And he was highly criticized for that by some people. And he said, don't worry, like, you know, for those who are not qualified yet, they will not be interested in this knowledge.
That's true.
And
They will not last. They may come but they won't last.
yes, they would not be interested or they would not understand it. So you can blast it from the loudspeakers, but this knowledge is still very private in that sense, because not everyone will understand it. And while we are looking at the qualifications, you will see that, okay, you might think, I don't have all these qualifications yet. At least, I mean, I have some of these, but maybe not in full measure. Just the fact that you're interested and you come to this class and you learn about what these qualifications are will also help you refine those qualifications in yourself. So you'll understand it when we talk about the qualification. But sure, if you did not have some of sadhana chaturya, perhaps not in full measure, but at least quite a good measure, you would not be interested in Vedanta. And you will not last through years of this study, let alone probably 6 months. Let's see.
So at the end of the classes, we will know whether we have this.
I mean, for sure, I will admit some of it will also be my own, you know, so I might not just be the right teacher for some of you. So it's not a complete reflection on you necessarily.
Oh, nice to see that.
Okay. All right. So let's do the end prayer.
Purnamadaha.
I believe you are underestimating yourself.
Let's see. But I had actually asked this question to my teacher and Raviji and also Swami Paramarthananda before I started teaching. When I was asked to teach that, but I believe everyone should get the best teacher, they should get a fully realized teacher. And Swami Paramarthananda said, well, that's their karma, the teacher they get. So you can just do your best, make sure you know much more than you're teaching. And what teacher someone gets is their prarabdha karma. All right, so this is kind of fun, just a light note.
And it's like how you connect with your teacher, that is very important.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, my sister introduced me to you. So this is the third time I'm doing it, and I'm really enjoying it.
I'm glad to hear that. Great. So let's do the prayer. Om
Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti
Shanti,
Shanti
Shanti. Hari Om Shri
Hari Om
Namaha.
Yo Namaha.
Thank
Om
you.
Tat Sat.
Thank you, Spandanaji.
Hari Om.
Week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank